Hello everyone and welcome to my Soap Twist 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Carter's heart sunk as the string quartet began to play, indicating the ceremony's commencement. He watched Hope walk down the petal-strewn aisle, her grin bright, her gaze fixed on Liam, who stood at the altar, beaming back at her. The visitors stood, whispers of admiration flooding the room. But Carter could not move. His feet seemed rooted to the ground, and his mind was screaming that he couldn't let this wedding happen until the truth was revealed. He looked at Steffi, who was standing at the front, her expression unreadable. She was dressed in a sleek, emerald green garment that fitted her shape, her eyes darting nervously toward Liam. Did she know what Carter knew? Did she suspect he had overheard her? The officiant began the ceremony with a pleasant and steady voice, but Carter's pulse raced through his ears. He could not allow Hope to marry Liam on false pretenses. He'd witnessed too much suffering in their world, too many lies that festered and ruined. He took one step forward, then another, his shined shoes crunching on the gravel walkway. Whispers rang through the audience as he approached the altar, his face pallid but determined. Hope's smile faded as she recognized him, and her brow furrowed in bewilderment. Liam squinted his gaze, realizing something was awry. "Carter?" Hope's voice was quiet, almost imploring, as he approached the front. "What is going on?" He swallowed hard, his throat drying. "I'm sorry, Hope," he whispered, his voice low but clear in the sudden hush. "I cannot let you do this." "Not yet." The visitors gasped, their murmurs becoming louder. Liam stepped forward, his jaw tightened. "What the hell are you doing, Carter?" Carter looked at Steffi, who stood transfixed, her hands clenched tightly in front of her. "This is our wedding." "Steffi," he continued, his voice firm despite the gravity of the situation. "You should tell them. You must tell Hope the truth." All eyes shifted to Steffi, whose face was pale. She shook her head gently, as if imploring Carter not to push her. But he did not waver. "Tell her," he repeated, this time gentler, almost imploring. "She deserves to know." Hope's gaze shifted between Carter and Steffi, her emotions racing. "Know what?" "Steffi, what exactly is he talking about?" Steffi's mouth parted, but no words emerged. She gazed at Liam, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears, and Hope felt a cold fear descend into her chest. Liam's face was a mask of uncertainty, but there was something else there, possibly remorse or terror. The silence was awful until Steffi said, barely above a whisper. "It was a year ago," she said, her voice wavering. "After you and Liam split up, Hope. When you were apart, he approached me. We were both grieving and lost. And one night," she paused, her gaze sinking to the ground. "One night, we slept together." The world came to a halt. Hope's breath seized, and her vision blurred as the words sank in. She looked at Liam, hoping for a denial, anything that would make this not real. But Liam's stillness sounded deafening. He glanced at her, his eyes full of regret, but he did not say anything. He did not refute it. "Liam?" Hope's voice cracked, barely audible. "Is this true?" Liam's shoulders fell, and his head bowed. "I hope this was a mistake. I was in a dark place and a mistake." Hope's voice rose, piercing and rough. "You slept with Steffi and didn't tell me? We've been planning this wedding and discussing our future, and you concealed this from me?" The visitors remained silent, the weight of the moment crushing down on them. Carter stood there, his heart bleeding for Hope, but he knew he had done the right thing. He couldn't let her get into a marriage based on lies. Steffi, too, appeared crushed, her customary confidence gone. "I didn't want to hurt you, Hope," she continued, her voice full with sorrow. "I wanted to tell you, but I wasn't sure how. I thought it was better to let it go." Hope's chuckle was bitter, and her eyes were filled with sorrow. "You made me believe in this, Steffi." She shook her head, unable to continue the sentence. She turned to Liam, her voice breaking. "How could you do this to me? Again?" Liam grabbed for her, but she backed away, her hands quivering. "Hope, please," he begged, his voice desperate. I love you. I have always adored you. It was one night and one foolish moment. It didn't mean anything. It meant something to me, Hope muttered, her eyes welling up. It means everything to me. The officiant cleared his throat, wondering what to do, but Hope had already started moving. She collected her gown in her hands, her veil trailing behind her as she turned and walked back down the aisle, away from Liam, away from the altar, and away from the life she believed she had. The visitors parted for her, their expressions a mix of disbelief and sympathy. Carter watched her leave, his chest tightened with shame and grief. He had done what he believed was right, but at what cost? Steffi slumped into a chair, her hands covering her face and fighting back sobbing. Liam stood motionless at the altar, his world collapsing around him. He wanted to run after Hope and beg her forgiveness, but his feet would not move. He gazed at Steffi, fury and grief blazing across his eyes. "Why didn't you tell me you were planning to do this?" he demanded, his voice low and harsh. "I didn't know Carter knew," Steffi replied, her voice muffled by her hands. "I did not want this to happen. Not like this." Carter looked away, unable to take the sight of their suffering. He'd hoped that revealing the truth would offer clarity, but all it did was shatter the delicate bliss they'd all held to. He strolled toward the estate's edge, the quartet's sound diminishing behind him and being replaced by the distant hum of the city. He thought of Hope, who was now alone and heartbroken. He thought about Liam, who was dealing with the consequences of his decisions. And he remembered Steffi, caught in the crossfire of her own regrets. Hours later, Hope sat alone in her apartment, her bridal gown on the floor and her face smeared with tears. She glanced at her engagement ring, a reminder of a broken promise. She wasn't sure if she could forgive Liam, and she couldn't look at Steffi without feeling deceived. Carter, her friend and confidant, had torn it all apart. She understood why he did it, but the anguish was too intense. Across town, Liam sat in his car, staring at the steering wheel, remembering the moment when Steffi's words altered everything. He'd made a mistake, certainly, but he believed he could put it behind him, that he could make a life with Hope without the past dragging them down. He wasn't sure if she would ever speak to him again. Steffi, meanwhile, sat in her office at Forrester Creations, the silence of the empty building crushing down on her. She had never intended for things to end this way. She had once loved Liam, and perhaps a part of her still does, but she wanted him to be happy with Hope. She'd ruined that happiness, and she didn't know how to restore it. Carter stood on his balcony, a tumbler of whiskey in his hand, looking out at the city lights. He had done what he felt was right, but the consequences were terrible. He'd seen Hope's face of grief and betrayal. He'd seen how Liam and Steffi disintegrated in the face of the truth. He wondered if he had made a mistake and should have remained silent. However, it was too late now. The damage was done. Days turned into weeks, and the fallout persisted. Hope immersed herself into her job, disregarding Liam's calls and Steffi's attempts to apologize. Liam attempted to contact her, leaving voicemail messages that remained unanswered, his heart bleeding with each passing day. Steffi maintained her distance, burdened by the shame of her secret and the knowledge that she had contributed to Hope's distrust. Carter, ever the fixer, found himself unable to repair what he had helped break. The wedding, which was supposed to be a celebration of love, became a recollection of loss, a reminder that even the strongest relationships can crumble beneath the weight of reality. Hope, Liam, Steffi, and Carter were left to sort through the rubble, each dealing with their own regrets, sorrows, and unanswered thoughts about what may have been. Hope strolled along the beach one evening, the waves gently smashing at her feet. She reflected on the life she had imagined with Liam and the family they could have started. She remembered Steffi, who was once her adversary but also a friend. She remembered Carter, who had tried to protect her but instead wrecked her world. The melancholy was palpable, yet underlying it was a glint of determination. She had no idea what the future contained, but she was confident she'd find a way to move forward, even if it meant going it alone. Liam sat in his office, glancing at a photo of himself and Hope from happier times. He had no idea if she'd ever forgive him, but he vowed to keep trying, to demonstrate that his love for her was genuine, even if it was flawed. Steffi stared at her window, observing the city below, her heart heavy with sorrow. She had made mistakes, but she would overcome them. She always did. And perhaps, one day, she and Hope will be able to reconnect, not as rivals, but as two women who have been through too much to allow this to define them. Carter, alone in his flat, poured another glass of whiskey, the weight of his decisions still pushing upon him. He wanted to do the right thing, but he'd learned a painful lesson. The truth doesn't always set people free. Sometimes it simply ripped everything apart. And so the four of them went on, each in their own way, united by a shared history and tragedy, forever changed by a wedding that never happened. Liam was already at the altar, fixing his tie with hands that were more nervous than joyful. He wanted to see this day through and be the husband Hope had always desired. He reminded himself over and over that the past was behind them, that mistakes had been buried, and that this was an opportunity for rejuvenation. However, when he examined the faces gathered in the pews, he couldn't shake the hollow ache twisting within his chest. He remembered Steffi, the years they'd spent together, the times when love was simple and pure, before the storm of decisions and consequences drowned them all. He closed his eyes briefly, attempting to block out the picture of her grin and the anguish it caused within him. Carter was requested to officiate the ceremony. It should have been an honor, but from the moment he consented, he felt burdened by the weight of words that could link two people who were still entangled in unfinished business. He was not blind. He noticed Liam's gaze wandering when Hope was not looking. He saw that Hope's laughter often felt like a mask to protect her from sorrow. Above all, he understood what Steffi had confided in him, the secret she had been hiding with shaky hands, a reality that threatened to break everything if it was revealed. He stood at the edge of the aisle, the vows written neatly in ink on the sheet in front of him, but each word appeared to be a lie ready to be delivered. Steffi assured herself she wouldn't come. She had murmured it to her home's walls, to the empty crib where memories of her children echoed softly. But she couldn't resist, since her heart couldn't let Liam go entirely without knowing the truth that had been gnawing at her. She went silently into the rear of the chapel, unseen at first, her gaze drawn to Liam in his suit, his posture tight with the weight of responsibility. She wanted to turn around and never look back, but the truth she carried was too heavy to remain silent. Her presence alone was like a thunder cloud creeping into the sun. Carter's breathing became labored as the music began, and Hope entered the aisle. Every visitor got to their feet and turned to face the vision of beauty in white, but his gaze was attracted to the shadow in the back, Steffi, standing with sorrow in her eyes. His heart raced as he attempted to concentrate, to believe he could hold the ceremony together, but his conscience screamed louder with each stride Hope took toward Liam. The vows began, and Carter's voice trembled, but no one noticed at first. Hope's words were delicate, trembling with fragile hope, and she spoke of trust, of a shattered but resilient love. Liam's words were more steady, but his eyes darted with doubt, as if a part of him was reaching beyond the present moment, beyond the woman in front of him, to something unresolvable. Carter listened intently, each phrase striking him like a blow, knowing that the truth was only a few steps away, waiting in stillness. When the words, "If anyone here knows of any reason why these two should not be joined," were said, the chapel fell silent. No one moved or breathed, but Carter's chest heaved as he stared squarely at Steffi. Her eyes glistened, pleading and trembling, as if begging him not to bear the load alone.
He realized.
He couldn't let Hope enter into a vow based on silence. "I can't," Carter stated abruptly, breaking the silence. Murmurs echoed around the room, and Hope's face paled as she turned toward him. Liam stiffened, confusion flashing over his eyes. And then Carter said the words he had dreaded. "There is something you don't know, something that changes everything." Gasps rang out as Steffi walked forward, unable to conceal any longer. Hope's bouquet trembled in her hands, with petals falling like tiny shattered promises to the ground. Liam gazed, his lips parted, but no sound came out. Steffi's voice trembled as she added, "I didn't want this moment to unfold this way. But you all deserve to know the truth." She gazed at Hope, her eyes welling up with sorrow. "I tried to allow you to have this day. I tried to bury it. But Liam, you should know that what we shared, what happened, was not a mistake. It changed everything." Hope staggered back, her heart breaking in a way she had feared for years, but hoped would never happen. Carter closed his eyes, remorse weighing like a stone. Yet he had done what he thought was right. Liam, caught between two universes, looked at Steffi with a raw pain that felt like it was ripping his soul apart. The room broke into whispers, gasps, and the rustling of incredulity. Hope dropped the bouquet completely, her hands shaking as she glanced at the guy she loved and believed she could finally trust. The quiet between them sounded louder than any words could. Liam opened his mouth to speak, but no words emerged. In that moment of silence, everything broke. Hope's chest felt like it was sinking in as Steffi's words echoed in her ears. The sanctuary that once housed her dream now resembled a cage, with walls closing in with each heartbeat. Her wedding dress, once a symbol of joy, felt oppressive and heavy, like a cruel reminder of the life she was about to embark on, constructed on unsteady footing. Her gaze scanned Liam's face desperately, hoping for denial, comfort, or anything that would make this moment disappear. But Liam did not deny it. His silence revealed the cruelest truth of all. Liam's heart hammered as if it wanted to exit his chest. He wanted to speak up, explain, and declare that Steffi's discovery was not what it appeared. His throat was dry, and the weight of shame had taken away his voice. He glanced at Hope's shaking hands and shattered visage, and the reality hit him like a lightning bolt. He had broken her again. The love he promised her, the future he sketched with precise words, was disintegrating before her eyes. Steffi's tears obscured her eyesight, but she forced herself to remain upright. "I never wanted to hurt you, Hope," she said quietly, her voice raw. "I told myself it was ended, and Liam belonged with you. But the night we spent together, and the closeness we still have, was not for nothing. It wasn't a mistake I could undo." Her hushed words rang throughout the chapel, like a confession to the skies. Carter grabbed the pages, so firmly that they crumpled. He had officiated at numerous nuptials and witnessed love in its purest and most frail forms, but he had never felt the crushing weight of conscience like he did today. His role was to lead, bless, and unite. Instead, he had torn open wounds that may never heal. But in his heart, he understood that quiet would have been worse. It would have been awful to watch Hope vow to a man whose truth had been split in two. Hope's knees almost crumbled, so she grabbed the side of a pew to stabilize herself. Her lips trembled as she finally spoke, her voice barely audible. "You told me you swore. Liam, you swore I was the only one." Her voice cracked, piercing every soul in the room. Liam stepped forward, tears in his eyes. "I love you, Hope. I do. But Steffi and I will always be connected in ways I can't just delete." The moment was a knife slicing deeper into Hope's heart. Her dream had been shattered in front of everyone, not by strangers, but by those she trusted the most.